But yeah, so the doctors don't know. They couldn't figure out why. They don't like his primary care doctor. She said that he is the third Noonan's case that she's ever had. She's ever had, and he's the worst. But at the same time, his type of Noonan's is the worst kind. Yet he's medically one of the healthiest kids that is medically the healthiest one she's ever had. He's got the worst type and he's the most healthy. Go figure. My son is like me. He is stubborn as fuck. And he doesn't know that he's special. He doesn't realize he's got medical issues. He doesn't. He thinks he's a fucking normal kid, and thank God for that. Because that's the only thing I think that's kept him as strong as he has. But so everyone you listen to all this stuff that's wrong with him and you think, oh my God, this is terrible, that poor kid. No, don't say poor kid. No, don't feel bad for my son. Believe me, he certainly doesn't feel bad for himself. I don't feel bad for him. I think that he's a little fucking prick, just like his dad, and that's why he's doing good despite everybody. Because everyone's like, oh, well, he's not gonna do this, he's not gonna do that, and he's like, really? Fuck you, I'm gonna do it anyways. So I am, and my son, I can tell that he's like that too, and I think that's why he's been doing as well as he is, because he's fucking stubborn. He's a person that's like me. Don't tell him not to do something. If you tell him he can't do it, he's going to find a way to do it, because that's how I am. And I know he's like me. I can see it in him. I see so much of myself in this kid. So that's his heart problem. On to his lung issue. So, like I said, when he was 2 months old, 3 months old in the last video, he got the rhinovirus, which is a cold. Now, because he was preemie, his lungs weren't fully developed. As I said, I think in one of the previous videos as well. They were about a week out from being fully developed. That was the only thing that wasn't completely developed, by the way. He was right on that line. There's a line, like, I think it's like 7 or, like, I think it's like 6 weeks. Like, once, like at 6 weeks early, they're, like, the last 6 weeks or so, 6 or 8 weeks of a pregnancy, the baby's basically fully formed. It just gets bigger. It just gains weight. He was right before that. It was just shy of him getting to that last level of it being a baby, that last level of growth, which is just that growth. It's not there's nothing else developing, and the lungs are the last thing to develop in a baby. It's the last thing that is of all the organs, that is the last one to develop, and he was just a week shy of having them be basically completely formed. So he had a little bit of a rough start. I chuckled at Sacred Heart when they told me what he had. Just when we asked about, we're like, well, why are his, what, other than obviously that they were underdeveloped, but like, what, other than that, what's the issue? The nurses look at me and they're like, he has wimpy white boy syndrome. And I laughed because I thought they were joking. I'm like, what the, I'm like, what? Like, wimpy white boy syndrome? What the fuck is that? They're like, no, that's really a thing. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, we don't really have a medical term for it. That's what we call it because it only happens with boys, and it only happens with Caucasian boys. White boys, for some reason, are weaker when they're born. They call it wimpy white boy syndrome. Apparently, it doesn't happen with Hispanic babies. It doesn't happen with black babies. It doesn't happen with Asian babies. It only happens with white babies. How's that for being racist? Not really racist, but how's that for, ethnic weakness? How's that for your superior race, huh? Yeah, not so much. There's no such thing as a superior race. There's no such thing as a superior species. We are all the same fucking species. So he got the rhinovirus. So he had wimpy white boy syndrome. I mean, he basically had weak lungs and he had issues breathing. He was intubated at this point. He had a tube in his mouth and a tube in his nose. He was fed through his nose. He was fed through a tube and he would breathe through. Well, he didn't breathe through it. Actually, I take that back. He had one tube. He had a tube in his nose that he was fed through, and he had he had a tube in his mouth that he was fed through. He had a nose cannula, which is a little thing that you put in your nose, like you see the old people walk around with oxygen tanks, those little things in their nose. That's what he had, because he couldn't breathe well on his own. He needed a little bit of extra oxygen. And I now know how to read heart monitors. I know how to read oxygen monitors. My son has one. He has it tells us his heart rate and his O2 sat, which is oxygen saturation, the amount of oxygen in his blood. You want to be somewhere in the 90s. When your oxygen saturation drops below 86%, by the way, side note, I actually learned this before my son was born. I learned it from watching a Ripley's Believe It or Not about a guy who could hold his breath for a really, really long time. When your oxygen saturation in your blood drops below 86%, and it drops below 86% for a significant amount of time, you will get brain damage. It will cause brain damage and or kill you because you're just not getting enough oxygen. If you survive, you could suffer permanent brain damage from it. So when he got the rhinovirus, his airway collapsed. He had a floppy not epiglottis. He had a floppy trachea, and that's actually very common among preemie babies. A lot of preemies have that. It's just the cartilage in your trachea when you're born is soft, and it hardens as you get older. And his was just a little too soft. It hadn't hardened up yet, and he got really sick, and his airway collapsed. So we had to drive to Gainesville, which is a 6.5-hour drive from where we live. And Gainesville's in Central Florida. That's where FSU is. Any of you people who are into college football, go Gators. I'm a FSU. I'm a Gators fan. Or right? UF? No, FSU is Seminoles. I'm UF. University of Florida. Yeah, UF. I think is the Gators. But I'm Gators. Florida Gators. I'm a Gators fan. I don't like football, but if I have a team like my NFL team, this is unrelated. NFL team, Steelers, Pittsburgh. I'm a Pittsburgh fan for all fucking sports. Baseball, hockey, football. I bleed black and gold. When it comes to college, I bleed blue and orange. I love the Gators because that's where Nemours, which is or not Nemours, it's Nemours now. It was called Shands Hospital. It's a children's hospital. That's where they sent. Now the reason why they sent him there for his tracheostomy is because of his heart issue. No anesthesiologist in Pensacola wanted to touch him. Like, that's too much risk. I don't want to risk it. Like, I don't feel comfortable, And Shands in Gainesville is one of the best cardiology hospitals in the country. It's, like I said, we are very lucky that we live in Florida. I didn't realize this when I moved to Florida, but the hospitals in this state are outstanding. They are some of the best hospitals in the country. And they sent him there because the anesthesiologists in Gainesville were willing to put him under, and the ones here wouldn't. Because of his heart issue, they didn't feel comfortable putting him under. So, at 3 months old, this kid gets a hole cut in his neck, puts a tube put down there. And they cut a hole in his stomach, and they put a feeding tube in there. They also did something called a fundus, where they actually took his stomach and they wrapped it around his esophagus and sewed it up. My son can't really throw up. He could. If he really got sick, he could do it. But because his stomach is like right around like the top of where your esophagus meets your stomach, the stomach's actually wrapped around and sewed around that. Now, you can't reverse that. He's going to have that for the rest of his life. And personally, I one of the regrets I do have is I really regret speaking up, and I really wanted to tell the doctors, don't do that. I don't want you to do that to my son. I really should have, and I didn't. And now my son has to deal with that for the rest of his life because I didn't. I don't imagine it's going to be an incredibly big issue. I just feel like it might cause some inconvenience over time. Because, like I said, he doesn't really have the ability to throw up. I've seen this kid spit up twice in his entire life, by the way. Twice. Both of those were before he got the trach and the G-tube. And the G-tube's the part in his stomach that we feed him through. So yes, my son eats and breathes through tubes currently. Pretty sad. When you word it like that, that's pretty sad. But like I said, you'll see videos of him. He don't fucking realize it. He don't care. He thinks he's a normal fucking kid. That kid will take and try to pull his own damn fucking feeding tube out. He yanks on it and then he cries and I'm like, well, yeah, dummy, you pull on it. It's in your fucking stomach. What do you think was gonna happen? You think it was gonna tickle? No, it's gonna fucking hurt. I mean, there's times where he'll pull the actual, like, he's got the little part that the tube fits into, that the formula goes into. He'll pull the part out that goes into his G-tube, and he'll sit there and put it over his face and look at it and get covered in fucking formula, then laugh about it. I'm like, you little fucking shit. Like, especially my kid is a shithead. He's a little goofball. He does fucking little shit like this all the time just to piss me off. He knows it, and he laughs about it. So yeah, my kid's normal. He's far from special needs. That's why I refer to him as medically complex. He's not special needs, he's medically complex, because mentally, you can tell, he's wicked smart. He figures shit out really quickly, so he's very intelligent. And he doesn't have any signs of autism, he doesn't have any signs of Down syndrome, he doesn't have any signs of any kind of mental delays. The only delays he has are physical, and most of those have to do with the fact that he either has tubes or he spent the first solid almost year of his life in a hospital bed. which is why he doesn't walk yet. That's why his muscles, when he first came home, were very weak, because he didn't move. He didn't move around. Now we can't get this kid to sit still. Put him on the floor in the living room now. We'll take him up. Like, he's also off the vent now. Not off it completely, but during the day he still has a trach, but we'll take him off the breathing tube, the actual big tube that goes from the vent to the trach. We take that off and he just plays. He breathes through just his trach, and he's really good at that. So at the end of this whole lung thing, his lungs are fucking great now. His lungs are very strong. He's got really good lungs. He breathes on his own with no issues. You know, within 2 years, he should have everything done. The goal is by spring, I think they said they want him off the vent completely, like 24 hours a day. He won't need the breathing machine at all anymore. And by the end of 2018, they're hoping to have the trach out completely. And then the following year, G-tube will come out. So basically, by the time he's like 4, the goal is that his feeding tube and his breathing tube will be gone completely. He will be a more or less normal child. He'll still have the fundus, the little stomach thing. He's still gonna have the heart problem, and obviously the Noonans, but that's gonna be it. I'm gonna end this one now because I'm getting up on 12 minutes. I ended this one now. We're gonna continue more with the story of Shan's. We were there for 6 weeks. We were there for a good long time. Well, I was there for, I think, 3 or 4. 4. It was 4. Because I had work. I had taken time off from work because they were like, I was like, hey, I actually went into work the day that he was shipped to the hospital. And I was like, look, my kid's airway collapsed. He needs to have emergency surgery. They're flying him to Shan's. I need to go. I need to take a month off from work. I will not, or it was 3 weeks. Because if it was a month, I would have had to reapply. So I think it was 3 weeks. I was like, look, I need to take 3 weeks off. I'm not coming into work tonight. I will not be in for the rest of the week. I need 3 weeks off. And they were like, yeah, sure, dude. What you need to. Let us know when you're back. And it's fine. And it was in like February. It was around my birthday, and taxes had just come back. So I had plenty of money. So I didn't need to work for a few weeks. I had a good chunk of change saved up at that point. As a matter of fact, up until about 2 months ago, I was still had tax money in my bank account. I recently applied for food stamps, so my mom took all my money out of my savings account so I could lie kind of and say that I didn't have it. So I have like $200 up to that. But that was that was this year's taxes. Never mind. That was different. That was last year. Anyways, that's it for this one. Look forward to the next one. It'll be up soon. Love you guys. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for being interested in this. Thanks for all the support you guys give me. If you have, I know nobody's really subscribed yet, but this is me saying thank you for those of you that will subscribe and support me after I do this. Like, as of right now, I have 1 subscriber, and that is my friend Tess from work. Love her. Tess, if you're watching, I love you, girl. You're amazing. You make my days at work great. You are a phenomenal person. Don't ever change. You are the salt of the earth, and I love you. She's my first subscriber. She said I was hilarious. She's my girl. Not in a romantic sense. She's a good friend of mine. It's my girl. So yeah, if you think I'm weird for saying stuff like that when I have no subscribers and no comments, it's because I'm hoping that down the road people are going to go back and look these and then they'll be like, I'm speaking to future people. I'm speaking to you people in the future from now. Years from now. I'm speaking to you. You people who are subscribers now, years after I make this, I'm talking to you. Thank you for everything that you do. And making my channel awesome, making me feel great about myself, and helping me to do what I love. Love y'all. Peace. And this is the Cranky Yankee. We'll see you in the next one.